This is Alex Makarski of startupgizmo.com, and I'm hanging out today with Andrew Greig, the CEO of OptiBike, and a person whose mind is probably several decades ahead of everyone else I know. Whenever I talk to those guys, either he's crazy or he stole a time machine somewhere and he knows what's going to happen in the future, and he's already working on it. So be prepared for an interesting ride today. Andrew, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
So you're working on the new thing, which is a bike. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. What the motivation was is I started to do the research for a bunch of different things, like, what's the biggest issue for access to education, reducing carbon emissions, internet, electricity, transportation, all the major things. So what would be the one common thing you could focus on, something that would make things happen? Because carbon emissions in India and China, 47% of those emissions, according to the United Nations, with some of the studies they've done with groups, is from three-wheeled taxis, these tuk-tuks. They're two-stroke motors, they're being overtaxed. Then people have kludged together to make taxis. Getting to school. The time it takes to get to school is a huge thing for kids, because if it takes too long, then they have to make money, they have to take care of the other kids, go fetch some water, some food, work in the fields, whatever. So that time to get back and forth to school, a lot of groups have been giving the kids, Kiva and so on, bicycles, which is interesting. And kids being able to get getting off of Ritalin. It was in the Today Show just a couple months ago, showing that kids are getting off Ritalin because they're on bicycles. So something magical about a bicycle, and the kids get off Ritalin, and even the kids without Ritalin on the bicycles, their point grade averages are going up drastically. So everything kept pointing towards a bike, and there's twice as many bicycles on the planet as there are cars. So if you're looking to change the world, you got to look for big numbers. So with the bicycle, I started to research it and found out, of course, that Mr. Benz from Mercedes-Benz started in a bicycle shop and patented the car. It was a motor on, a three-wheeled bicycle from a bicycle shop. The Wright brothers, of course, flight came from a bicycle shop.
Exactly.
So all these common things started to show up, right? Including the most mass-produced vehicle in the world is actually a Honda Cub. So it's a 49cc scooter. Right? That's the most mass-produced vehicle, more than Volkswagen Bugs or anything else that you can ever find in the marketplace. So the common denominator seemed to be a bicycle. So today, to be able to get, we need more efficiencies, because the use of the use of resources that we have today that's the challenge that we have right now is not efficient. So a bicycle, and I saw this in the most recent Steve Jobs movie, which I thought was really cool. A condor is the most efficient thing on the planet. So how much energy it takes in for how far it moves through space. Now, a human is the least efficient.
The bird, or condor is
Yeah, the bird. Yeah.
The bird. Okay.
So when you take a human, excuse me, with a human, we're the least efficient thing for how far we move through space or how much energy we take in. But if you take a bicycle and stick it underneath a human, it becomes more efficient, that combination, than a condor. Now you add electricity to that, and it's to the exponent, so that's crazy. So I started working with OptiBike, bought a few of their bikes in the marketplace, and said, hey, what if we made it so that these bikes could actually charge faster, go further, the Holy Grail of electric vehicles, and start here, because it's unregulated. And it would affect the most carbon emissions in these areas and many other things. So that's we started out, and now we've got a new technology that does make them charge in minutes instead of hours. The batteries last many times longer. You need less batteries. Working on a motor that needs no transmission, which is huge, because that's a big issue with electric vehicles. So just many things, and then the actual bikes themselves being able to be used to be able to reduce your electricity bill. So
now there's already a bunch of things that I want to drill into.
Sure.
So first of all, battery charge time. Mm-hmm. Like, there are a lot of bright minds working on problem right now. Like, what solution do you have?
Well, speaking of bright, yeah, sure, thanks. Speaking of bright minds, The gentleman that created this stuff actually is a nuclear physicist, so he helped to design a lot of nuclear plants. And he's also done, quite a few other patents. Like, you go from your wall outlet to your laptop, like here today, and there's a little thing that changes it from AC to DC. That little block, that's one of his patents. So it's not a garage type setup type guy. This is in production, ready to go. It's already in the solar industry right now, and it reduces the cost of your return on investment from 5 or 6 years down to 2 or 3 years for making your money back on a solar installation. This magic box. So this magic box, to make it as simple as possible, has 110 different patents, and what it does is it's actual oscilloscope that's inside of the actual charger. So any power in, any power out, and it listens to the power coming in and out and manages it both ways, and then communicates that with other devices. So what does that mean? It means we can charge the bike instead of 8 hours. We can charge the bike in 10, 15, 8 minutes is what we're looking to get it down to.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so that means, of course, that you don't need as big a battery, because you can just stop after an hour or 2 hours, plug in for 5-10 minutes, and get 80% of your battery charged up. So how that works is the bottom half of the battery charges much faster than the top half, and so the chargers today are set so they only work towards the top half, because they don't want the batteries to heat up and to warp or explode. So that's kind of important. So what you do with this, the oscilloscope literally just pings it and says, hi. The echo coming back to us says, oh, the wire's about a 14 gauge, the fuse is about a 10 amp, and the batteries are at about this state right now for heat and for how much power they have in them, and this is the type of batteries they are. And then it just starts pushing the power in.
You can get all this from a simple thing.
Mm-hmm.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So this is it's a very different way of looking at it. So, but it also, for the motor and everything else that's on the vehicle, what it does, it reduces the motor mass, the weight of the motor, by 25%, but we still have the same performance and reliability, because when you send power to the motor, it shocks it. So this, like there's a light bulb in California in a firehouse that has a 100-year birthday, about 3 or 4 months ago, and that's because it's never been turned off. Right. Because it's regulation. So it doesn't heat and cool. So motors, lights, whatever you do, if you gently bring the power in, gently bring the power back off, then it doesn't have the immediate cooling and heating and the shock of that for the metals to be able to expand and contract. So that's what this does. It literally sends the power to it in a way that is complementary to it, so that it doesn't have to be overbuilt, so to speak.
But you still have the torque that you're looking for. You still have the fun. It does not take the fun out.
Absolutely. And speaking of fun, the reason I'm with this company is because they're the Ferrari of electric bikes. They win Pikes Peak, which is the best for endurance, the tour bike, the pace bike for the Tour de France. This motor being in the middle is like a Ferrari. It's, the weight is in the middle, so it handles better. So it's like a Lotus Elise, right? It's one of the best handling things, right? So, and it's right on the crank. So when you can pedal to add to it, and you can also use the gears behind you, and you don't have the weight in the wheel, which creates challenges, as far as suspension and handling and so on and so forth. So it's very, very different from everybody else. And we're looking, we are in the 2,500 watts is the one we have now, but we have another one in the works right now that's 25,000 watts. So we're talking pedal bicycles that weigh 55 to 65 pounds, that have the same horsepower to weight ratio as motorcycles. So like a 125 enduro, 2-stroke right now is what we're at, but we have the capability of doing something that is like a 1,000 cc, 0 to 60 in 2.4 seconds on a pedal bike that weighs 60 pounds.
That's insane. How fast can you go on this bike?
Depending on the gearing, right now, this one, I just came back from Costa Rica, is set up for the mountains. So its top end is about 65, 70 kilometers an hour, but it'll climb any like 45-degree grade, with a trailer on the back, with 200 pounds worth of produce in the back from the farmer's market. I'm going up, 45-degree grades where 4x4s can only go, and they have it in bull low, right? It's very serious four-wheel drives, right? And I'm passing them, right, with a load on, no problem. And because I weigh a lot less, motorcycles that weigh 250, 400, 500 pounds, they can't follow me because I'll go around a curve and I'm a 55-pound bike with a 150-pound guy, and when they try to go around the same curve, they just can't. It's just the
you can
physics.
literally turn on the dime.
Yeah, and I can, lean down and go around the curve where they can't, because the mass, the weight of them will pull them off the road. So, I can go into town and back through the mountains, and it's a 13,000-foot mountain down there, right? And I can, go back and forth to town faster than any other vehicle that's down there. It doesn't matter what they have.
Now I'm already thinking I gotta have it. I gotta have this bike. Like, and how did it go from the kids in India riding to school and a taxi driver riding the tuk-tuk, to, people in the first world countries wanting to get on this bike? Because it's not just a solution for India, China. I don't know if it's a solution. It's a great product for everyone to have.
Yeah, what we're looking to do here is right now, how do you enter the market, right? Because it's like a Porsche and a Volkswagen, right? You've got two ends of the spectrum, right? There's different common pieces to the two different vehicles, obviously, right? So what we're looking to do right now is that Tesla has just pre-sold 400,000 electric cars. Mm-hmm. So now people are not asking if or when we're going to have electric cars and can you afford them. They're asking, where are you going to charge these vehicles? Because they'd still take 20 minutes to get an 80% charge at a fast charging station, right? That's a challenge. So with this device that we've been working with that does the fast charging and many other things, it's actually being installed in cell phone towers. So we had this epiphany. Why don't we just make cell phone towers the place where you actually go and do this charge? So we did the math, and roughly anywhere there's cell phone coverage within 0.5 of a mile, you can have a fast charging station. And the reason they're really good is because there's more of them than gas stations. They're situated up and down the highways where everybody is, so it's where, their coverage is where there's people, right, and where they're traveling. So that's ideal. They have a large amount of batteries because they're critical infrastructure, so when the power goes off, they have to be able to be up and running for quite some time. And using those batteries to be able to store power at night, which is cheaper, and then putting it out during the day and putting it into the cars is much easier on the grid than trying to pull it directly from the grid. So you can even out how much is coming out from the grid and make it much better manageable, right? So that's what we're looking to do. The next part would be is once people see this technology, then we would put it in the cars themselves and then reduce the mass.
Can we back up a little bit? So the cell phone tower, you would build a ramp to pull up to the tower, plug in, and you charge in 8 minutes, and you keep going.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd have, and the reason is because this device saves them 30% on their cost of electricity and 30% on their cost of actually putting a cell phone tower together. So
and the reason for that is because you can draw it from the grid when power is cheap.
Exactly. It's like Elon Musk with Tesla, right? And he has a brother that they do Solar City, which is the largest provider of solar panels in North America. What they did was came out with he's kind of like the Apple iPhone of cars and solar and so on, right? Because he made it sexy somehow. People just decided they wanted his stuff because he's got a battery that you put and hang on the wall in your garage, and it takes power from the night where there's low demand and it's cheaper, and stores it, and during the day it pushes it into your house, which reduces your electricity bill. So eventually the battery pays for itself and you start saving money. So that's what we're doing. In fact, our bikes do that. So I plug my bikes in here at the house, and it's 16 cents a kilowatt hour during the day, which is 90% of my consumption. So you got about $250, $300 bill a month depending, and then you have the 4 bikes, and at night it's 8 cents a kilowatt hour, so it's half. So what the bikes do is they store the power during the night, and a portion of the power, not all of it, because it knows based on usage, when I usually take the bikes out, it leaves enough in them so I can still go for a ride, because they have 50 to 100 miles they can actually go on a charge. So it's a long distance. So it uses the power and pushes it back into the grid through a regular wall outlet and pushes it into the house and turns the meter backwards and reduces my electricity bill. So our goal is to be able to reduce carbon emissions, electricity, internet, education, and transportation by 80%, because there's 3 billion people right now that don't have access to these things. And then once they have it, then we're going to have it because they'll have an unfair advantage in the marketplace because their infrastructure costs 80% less, which will force the whole world to be able to consolidate infrastructure and be more efficient with the use of the resources that we have on the planet to sustain the rapid growth of the population that we have today.
I have a couple of questions about what you just said. So how far can you go on one charge?
The batteries we have now, you can look on the OptiBike website, they go anywhere from 50 miles to 100 miles on a charge, that's not pedaling, and that's conservative. So, I've been on one of these bikes going crazy for 8 hours through the mountains, right? And it's still, the power was not gone, right? So that's crazy. Like, your butt hurts. Nobody stays on a bike that long, right?
That is crazy, yes. Wow. And you just said that you can actually push the power back into the grid from your battery? And so you can do that today? You don't need anything special for that?
You don't need anything special. It just goes through a regular wall outlet and it pushes it back into the house and back through to the grid. No special agreement. I'm sure there's going to be some challenges that'll happen in the future with regulators and how that stuff happens and so on. But right now, today, that works. So depending on where you are in the world, you can run your house off of or reduce your bill for your house from these. So I just consider them to be the same thing as these batteries that Tesla, has been putting out to put in your garage to do the same thing, but those don't have wheels underneath them, so they don't get the subsidies, right? So these have wheels underneath them, so a percentage of them you're going to get back from your provincial or federal or state or whatever government for the incentives that are becoming bigger every day.
That's crazy.
It is.
I mean, it's crazy good.
Yeah.
But I bet you a lot of people listening to this are going, is this guy for real? Like, is this?
Well,
is this actually possible?
Well, here's what makes me crazy, Andrew. Right, right here in Woodbridge, just north of Toronto, we have, part of our consortium, part of our holding company is a company that's been installing for 8 years cell phone towers for the largest companies in North America, and we can show you, and you're welcome to come and see. Give us a call, give us an email, and you can come see this actually being charged and the solar array, the whole thing being used, because I wouldn't believe it either. I didn't believe it when I first heard about it. It took me 7 years of investing and being able to bring partners to the table and customers and looking at the best verticals and stuff, right? So we figured electric bikes were the easiest, and now with what's happening with the electric car industry, it makes a lot of sense to be able to work on that vertical. And then the cell phone towers, and they just magically came together, right? So that's so they're welcome to come see it. We have videos of showing this process happening, but it is the Holy Grail thing. So I do recommend that if you're serious about either partnering or investing or a large customer, then you're more than welcome to come see this. We've already demonstrated it to Magna, which is the largest automotive parts manufacturer in the world. We're using the best bicycle that we found in the world is a downhill bike that's the best handling in the world. The World Cup winner that's from a consortium called Durrell, which is in Canada with $2 billion worth of assets. So we're working with some of the biggest people to deploy this, because that's probably what people are asking is, these are great ideas and great technology. How are you going to make this happen? Well, the CFO of our company, OptiBike, you can see on the website, is the former CEO of the largest bank in China, and he created 3 of the largest clean tech funds in the world and sold them off. The co-CEO with me is Stéphane Bouvard, and he was the president of Sun Microsystems in Canada and took them from number 14 in the market to number 1. He's huge in mergers and acquisitions, grew up with the former CFO of Google, extremely well connected, and he'll be taking this into the server farm market, because that's it's a longer sales cycle and it requires more effort, but it is the most lucrative, because it's the biggest line item for Google and other companies that do server farms, which are growing for cloud computing like huge, is electricity. So if you can reduce that cost by 30%, that's monstrous. So this is literally worth trillions of dollars. That's what this is. So where we're looking to go is that Alex Logie has got relationships with personal friends and investors and board members of Alibaba, and with Jack Ma, and So it's the Asian market is really where we're working towards, that we'll be ending up in, because most of our stuff's in Costa Rica, which there's a big relationship with China from that standpoint. So that's our big market, that's what we're going for, because we want to make the biggest difference, the biggest impact from a carbon standpoint for kids, for education, getting back and forth to school. Imagine a kid, there's a bunch of solar panels at the school, and the school is a quasi Montessori Waldorf school where the kids run and own and design their own school because they make money with their tuk-tuks and their three-wheeled electric pedal taxis with some type of Uber thing happening, right? And then when they drive somewhere, they can plug it in and reduce the cost, or give electricity where there is no electricity, to boldly go where no infrastructure or social economic development has ever gone before, right? That's really what this is for, is for those 3 billion people, right? So, and electricity right now, as it comes through the wires from the nuclear plant or from the hydroelectric or coal-fired or whatever it is, or gas, you're losing 60% through the wires. 60%.
Yeah, it's very inefficient.
So imagine you actually got a use out of it. People were actually getting a ride, and things were getting there. You replace the school bus and take that budget and put that into giving everybody an electric bike, and everybody goes, wow, because I'm completely convinced the world will not save itself as far as humanity goes unless the solution is fun and sexy. If it's not fun and sexy, nobody's going to do this. So we're making the Lamborghini of electric bikes, right? We're making something that is, like a Lamborghini to me, a Countach, I'm 48, so if you look back to the Countach, it was dead sexy, completely impractical, and scared the hell out of you because it had so much power. So, just like a woman, right? It's perfect, right? That's what's intriguing, right? Because you don't buy a Lamborghini Countach to be able to go to the market and back, or to go to work, right? So we picked a bike that
I have a sense that your bike's are a lot more practical than that.
Well, there's both sides. There's the Porsche, and then there's the Volkswagen, right? So there's both ends of the spectrum, right? And they share, common, the Robin Hood thing, right? You've got to have something that's the Gucci bag, but you got to have the paper bag somewhere else. That's somewhere else, right? So that's when we put all these things together. There's here. Let's do the math on this one. So the batteries that are in our bikes are the same ones that are in the Tesla cars, right? So a Tesla, if you were to be able to lease a Tesla right now, a base Tesla, is $500, $600, $700, right, in that range in the United States. So if you're to do that, the biggest cost is the amortization of the batteries, which is about 80%. So if you can charge it faster, you don't need as many batteries, right? If the batteries last longer, then you don't need to charge as much in the lease. Now, if you make it so that you can push power back into your house and make a new savings from the during the night to the day for the two different prices, oh wow, okay, now you've highly subsidized it. So what my goal is personally is to make it what's called a freemium. We want to make electric vehicles free. In fact, we want to pay you to drive them, because we're going to not only, there's going to be internet, because right now cell phone towers are pushing out a lot of electricity and a lot of power and are causing health issues, right? So if you could lower that power and make hopping points between the cars and make them 80% of the solution as far as little mini towers, a mesh network, right? Then that would lower the power and better for health, and it'd be a better way to have internet. And the cars themselves and the bicycles can actually be a distributed server farm, so you can have a squid cache. So using IPv6, ultra wideband, which is free spectrum, spread spectrum, you put all this stuff together, and if you're a geek, you probably just, got a big Woody going, what? Oh my God, this is crazy. So I did a project like this a while ago. It was in PBS called The Limits of SpongeBob SquarePants. But now you have this thing where there's twice as many bicycles on the planet as there are cars. So why not have that be your internet and electricity grid? So why not that be the grid, right? Make the bikes into the actual grid itself, right? This is the One Laptop Per Child project, but the One Laptop Per Child project didn't have internet or electricity. So or a server. So how did you get access in the middle of nowhere with a laptop? The kid, it was useless, right? So this can boldly go where no infrastructure has ever gone before, to help people to socially and economically uplift themselves, so the kids can have self-esteem. And once they have self-esteem, they can share things with other people and find out what their true, through self-directed learning, their own God-given gifts, and share those with other people and their passions, right? The Star Trek type of life, right? And that's really what what drives me is to be able to empower and enable kids to be self-aware and to be self-directed and critical thinking. And once you breed a generation of that, you create an environment for a generation of that, then we will change our behavior. Because that's, right now our behavior is simply just to follow whatever's being repeated to us and not to question it. And that, has us where we are today.
I think we can go on and on for hours and hours, because I think I have more questions, but that would probably be on a tangent to the topic of that OptiBike that you're working on. I would like to come back to it, and when one would be able to buy one. Like, where you at?
We've been selling bikes now for anywhere from $3,000 to $15,000 for 10 years. So they're on the website, they're for sale. And there's a crowdsource funding event that we're doing right now, because the downhill bike that we're using, the GT Fury, it magically has the room for us to bolt on with a new bracket that we made to the existing frame with a kit with some batteries and a throttle. So it's literally the best handling and the most powerful electric bike horsepower to weight ratio in the world. It's incredible. So they were sold for 5 years in the market all over the world. So we're putting out a kit. So it's like a Fiero or an MR2 that you put a Ferrari kit on or something like that, like an Orange County chopper type stuff, custom stuff. So either we'll put it together for you, or you have a bike and we sell you a kit. And then that's how we get started. So in the kit,
you have the batteries that you strap on and the motor goes inside the crank?
Yep, it's all bolt on.
So it can be retrofitted onto an existing bike.
Yeah, so you can take a downhill bike that normally just sat there and only went to the, to the ski slopes during the season for a few times a year, and turn it into something that, because I believe they're sexy. They're the sexiest bikes I've ever seen personally, right? You put in like sexy, mountain bikes in the internet, and their pictures come up, because they're just a work of art, these GT Furies, so you bolt the battery onto it, and you bolt the motor onto it to the existing stuff, no modifications to the frame. You put a throttle on it, and away you go. It's a complete turnkey kit for the do-it-yourselfers. And if they want, we can either source a bike, or they can source a bike, and we can put it together for them if they want.
What's the website for all this, and how do people contact you if they want to find out about investing and all and that kind of stuff?
Sure, yeah, it's OptiBike, so OPTI and then bike.com. And we've been on CNN, the Today Show, New York Times, Financial Post, and so on. So we've been around for quite a while. It's not a startup.
Very good. Andrew, thank you for coming on the show. This is fun.
Thanks. I appreciate making time.